we're out here. This is the field where the magic happens.
Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another episode of Benning Bites brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Sports. Hey, if you like daily competitive sports fantasy, Underdog Fantasy Sports is for you regardless of sport. Time of day, a little higher, a little lower, they got you covered. Just make sure you enter the promo code Benning after you visit the website or download the app. Appreciate you being a part of what we do, 7 through 10 every morning. Ravi and I just really kind of chewing through this Nebraska basketball thing, and a fascinating discussion morphed into across all sports at Nebraska. We went from football to basketball, even touched on a little bit of baseball with the Caleb Clarks and the Sears and the Drew Christos. And I mentioned those guys by name as the baseball season is getting ready to open up, because what we were talking about was how sometimes the negativity has kind of crept in the program. And I'm one of those guys that's kind of trying to process through what's going on. How much different is this than a team that we were pretty high on a month ago? Do I want to blame it on the schedule? Do I want to say it's just Big Ten conference play? Do I want to say it's the roster construction that has limited Nebraska? And sure, there could be a little bit of all of that, but at the end of the day, there's this ability that these coaches have that they pride themselves on, where it's working within the constraints of the roster. And so we just started talking about solutions of different roles within playing the cards in the hands that they're dealt, right? Is who are they talking to when the players and coaches and Coach Hoiberg talk about toughness and enduring and what has to happen in practice and getting to a loose ball and not painting such a we don't have any place to go because these are the guys that we got, versus how do we get the guys that we have better to do the roles that we need them to do in order to be successful. Because that's really coaching in a nutshell, when you're just not getting ready-made guys that you're kind of rolling out of the place. And so it was just this fascinating discussion about how much of knowing about a player is too much versus being who you are at the end of the day, versus, well, that guy may not be who we think he is. He may have something else in him. And we used weird analogies, right? Where with Jeff Sims to Brett Sears to, being patient with Caleb Clark or Drew Christo versus getting Morgan more touches within who he is. And does that mean that he needs to go for 8 more points a game? And we didn't really give hard data to what had to happen, as much as if you're coaching and you're Fred Hoiberg and you're a good coach, right? I mean, you're clearly the same guy that we used with all these data points of last March and kind of getting better along the way, and Nebraska at home and the 71 win percentage. Like they're still that same guy. He's still that same guy. So if you believe that, and I think you have to, because short of aliens, he's still the same guy, then they're capable. So what can we do within the confines of what the roster already lends itself to get back to some of those things, right? How do you get it to come to fruition to be the tough-minded defensive team? Well, I define roles and holding guys accountable and maybe seeing where you're at right now and how to further accentuate what the strengths are and minimize the weaknesses. And where all this started from was just the pushback that was kind of getting on social media and the doom and gloom between last night and this morning's show about, well, I heard this. Well, we're at this point in the season, and now all of a sudden we're starting Ulis. And I'm like, hey, listen, it wasn't specific to just being mad at Ulis. It was the point that I'm trying to make is Ulis was just the same guy that we were pretty happy with how he played in terms of his distribution on the road at Maryland, a team that had played really well at home. And we told ourselves we weren't really disappointed in the Maryland loss because we played better than we thought we would, and we fought. And so why not allow Coach Hoiberg the opportunity to experiment with playing to the strengths and trying to ride the momentum versus resigning yourself to the fact about what somebody can't do. Like, just leave it open to, I'm going to try to find the right buttons to push, to continue to accentuate our strengths and minimize our weaknesses, because we know we don't have a ton of margin for error. So maybe you do have to, a healthy Morgan without the bad heel. Maybe he does need more paint touches. Maybe you do say to Juwan Gary, hey, not as many threes. I don't want to stymie your aggressiveness, but maybe not so many threes. Or say to Brice, hey, sometimes toughness, you know what toughness is? It's going to the hoop when we need to stop the bleeding just so you get fouled, because we know that you're going to make some free throws and it's going to kind of quell the momentum. Or, hey, Berke, you're pretty crafty around the hoop. Instead of kind of finishing with both hands and being creative, maybe you just get fouled and then you hop up real quick and you say to yourself, yeah, I can take it, right? Because maybe that's the toughness or the springboard that those guys need to see. Or maybe it's Braxton Mia, where if you take a hard foul or you give a hard foul and you're not the last one to the next end of the court or the last one to get off the floor. It doesn't have to be anything really monumental or new roster pieces. Sometimes it's just maneuvering within the confines of what you have to make the statement that you want to make. And it can be a little uncomfortable for guys sometimes. You may have to do a little something different than you're not accustomed to doing, but you don't have to resign yourself to the tailspin of losing 5 in a row. It is very, very possible. But I also got the point of, sometimes guys are just who they are, DB, and I just don't think that's in coaches' natural responses. But for every, give you the example of, for every, like a Keisei Tominaga, who obviously got better, did kind of changed and varied his game within the program. I do get it. There's sometimes the Jeff Sims of the world that kind of just are who they have been. And the real ones that are committed to the game as teachers know you have to keep trying and know that you're not always going to get the same result with everybody, but the real danger is residing into labels too early as a coach, because the whole profession is about getting the best out of the young people that you're dealing with. It's tricky, but it's doable. It's another episode of Benning Bites.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.